So Sharon Angus is a Cisco certified IT instructor for the IT Support Specialist program at the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technologies, SIIT, for the past 3 years. Sharon has worked in the IT industry for almost 20 years with 10 years of training experience to train the next generation of IT specialists. The ITSS program is a 9-month program with classes such as hardware, software, networking 1 and 2, CCNA levels 1 and 2, virtualization, security, Windows Server, support, and user management, professional competencies, and Office applications. There are only 11 active Cisco certified instructors in Saskatchewan, according to a 2022 impact report released by Cisco, and Sharon is one of the only 3 active female Cisco certified instructors. In 2008, she was the recipient of one of 11 Cisco First Nation Award of Excellences awarded that year. Sharon hopes to continue to learn more about technology and share that knowledge with others in her community and others who wish to remain in their communities as well. Her specialties include computers, problem solving, research, internet research, instruction, hardware, software, troubleshooting, networks, and virtualization. Thank you very much.
Hi. I know you guys are probably all really excited to see Alina today, but now you're stuck with me. Just want to shout out to my students, hey guys. Okay, so the Indigenous Women in Tech was a research project started by Ethical Digital. And the goal was to identify the barriers that prevent Indigenous women from getting into tech and staying. So the retention is also part of that research that they had done. There we go. So at Ethical Digital, I actually sit on their technical advisory board for this project. So it's really awesome that I get to present today. So basically, Ethical Digital takes a look at the way that the internet is growing and how people are accessing it and everything, and again, with that ethical look, slant towards that data. So Katrina German is the head of, she's the CEO and founder of Ethical Digital. And working with her has been really great. So she's trying to work towards changing the trajectory of the internet. And as we all know, the internet isn't always a safe or happy place to be. So again, using that information that they gather is a means of trying to change that trajectory instead of going towards a more negative point of view. So Indigenous people in tech occupations, despite our already small numbers in population versus the larger population, the percentage, our representation, and that includes in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, are still significantly lower than the average population. So even though, yeah, the tech industry is kind of a niche market kind of thing, our participation in it is a lot less, right? So again, you can see the number of non-Aboriginal identities. We're looking at over 900,000, right? And then in First Nations, it's less than 6,000, so even less than 10%. Okay, so, and even though our population is a fraction, we are a fraction of that fraction. So, when it comes to Indigenous women, as you can see by the little slide here, Indigenous women get paid less, and there's less population involved as well. Okay, so male get 65 grand per year. For First Nations, and Métis is 73,000. So again, that representation Métis, they're kind of sitting on both sides of the cultural border there. So I'm not sure how much of that has to do with it, but they are. But the fact that females are paid less is, you know, unfair, I guess you could say, and part of it has to do with the perception of our involvement in technology. So basically the project was they interviewed over 100 women, Indigenous women in tech, looking to see to identify the barriers that prevent them from getting into tech in the first place and why they don't stay. And as an Indigenous woman in tech, I guess, I've been doing this for 20 years now, almost 20 years, next winter. That it says that, for instance, 73% of respondents considered a career in tech. So why didn't they continue that forward? They knew somebody in tech, but why aren't they using that as a jumping stone to get into the profession? So the report, once all the data had been aggregated and looked through and sorted, Ethical Digital released a report called Changing Saskatchewan's Tech Ecosystem to Empower Indigenous Women. I do have copies and I forgot to hand them out, but there's also, if you scan the QR code, you can get to the page to download the entire report if you would like to read it. So the report findings were, finding one was that respondents noted funding and money as the #1 barrier. Finding number 2 was that Indigenous women noted that training relocation or career location is a barrier to them working in the tech industry. Finding number 3 was that Indigenous women note that their current level of education has held them back from working in the tech industry. And finding 4 is respondents noted that childcare or family obligations were obstacles in attending training or careers in the tech field. So, based on those findings, Ethical Digital made some recommendations that will hopefully remove those barriers or at least bring them down enough for enough of us to climb over them. So the first one was the increased accessibility to funding supports, paid online training programs, paid internships, funds for tuition and living allowance, scholarships, bursaries for Indigenous women who want to pursue training or careers in the tech field. The second recommendation was to work with organizations and tech companies to increase the delivery of online tech training, work in partnership with Indigenous communities to develop tech training hubs with support for childcare. Number 3 was work with tech companies to develop women-centered workplace policies that focus on the unique needs of Indigenous women, such as childcare, flex time, remote or hybrid work, and continuing education. Fourth recommendation was work with the tech companies, Indigenous women, and educational institutions to develop and market women-centered micro-credentialing programs for specific tech industry vacancies, possibly funded or subsidized in part by the tech companies themselves. Now, the really interesting thing, and part of the reason why I'm involved with this project, and why I'm still here is that every single one of those recommendations I had access to and I took advantage of them. First of all, the program I took, when I first got into tech, I was completely self-taught, but to get into the industry, to stay there, I took some training, and it was offered completely online through Keewatin Career Development Corporation up north in La Ronge. So it was completely online as well. So that paid, I was able to support my young children who were quite young at the time and are all now grown up, but that allowed me to provide for my family. And the fact that it was completely online meant that I didn't have to relocate my young family. I could stay in my community. And working along with my reserve, they gave me space, and they made it so that way I could also take, because of that flex time, that they were talking about in suggestion number 3 was that I was also able to work from home on days when my children were sick, so I wasn't missing out on anything. So that delivery of online, childcare, paid, and the fact that it was the organization itself had a lot of female Indigenous employees. They saw the value in making sure that they invested in me. They're the ones who sent me to Toronto to get my CCNA certification, teaching certification. So again, if I hadn't had access to all 4 of those, and the fact that I did, I feel very, very fortunate because I really do love what I do. And now the idea is, how do we keep Indigenous women in the tech industry? So that's the other side of the coin, is that while I had access to all of this stuff, and I wasn't the only one, but how do you maintain that? And it's very difficult. Over the years, I have had good fortune of working with a lot of Indigenous women who work in the tech industry, but not all of them stay. So why is that? So this is the showcase. You can, and these are all of their, these are all the partners that they're working with. So the fact that we have these, making these types of connections and having this type of event and everything like that, it really makes a big difference for the women in the tech industry, especially Indigenous women. And the fact that SIIT has a program that's geared towards Indigenous people to have, to have that presence is making a difference. And each year, since I started teaching at SIIT, we've graduated increasingly more women. And I don't know if it's just me being in front of the classroom, but we hear that phrase all the time, representation matters, right? So the fact that I'm there and I've been doing this for so long, hopefully that is part of that reason that we're going to be able to graduate. The first year I taught, we graduated one Indigenous woman, actually just one woman. Second year, it was 3. Third year, it was 5. So this year, my goal is 7. We'll just keep going until we hit the median where it's half and half, right? So that's my ultimate goal. And so some questions to ask ourselves is, Canada's missing out on a whopping $27.7 billion annually because of its underutilized Indigenous workforce. So how do we bring those people in? And of course, that underutilized Indigenous workforce includes women, right? So if Indigenous people had the same education and training as non-Indigenous peoples, the resulting increase in productivity would mean an additional $8.5 billion in income earned annually by the Indigenous population. We are a $1 billion industry, and let's not forget that. So a $27.7 billion annual boost is a possibility for Canada's economy if equal economic opportunities are given to the country's Indigenous population, says a recent report. So partnerships with Reconciliation Saskatoon, we are in early planning stages of hosting Economic Reconciliation Hackathon that will focus on how to tap into that underutilized Indigenous workforce. What do we need to ensure Indigenous people have the same education and training opportunities and success as non-Indigenous people? So when that concept of getting that same education, a lot of times taking that type of training in a non-Indigenous community or a non-Indigenous organization, oftentimes the student can feel a little alienated. I know I've been to university before. So seeing the difference in how the other students were raised and what they had access to makes a big difference. On the reserve, I was just really lucky. I had access to a lot of things. And if I hadn't been so lucky, I might not be here right now. So this report actually means a lot to me, and having see so many women present here today, and having been in the industry as long as we have, I'm just, yay! Kudos to us all. Okay. Okay, apparently that was the last one. Cool. Sorry, I just found out this morning that I was going to be presenting. Is there any questions? Anybody? Thank you. Sorry for talking so fast. I had a lot of coffee today. Yeah.
I just wanted to commend you. It's really good work that you did with the report. And I just want to share, and I did share with some of the students yesterday, that myself, Patrick, and Shane at the front, we took a similar course about 10, 11 years ago,
Yeah.
and we're still working in the same tech field, and we get to see a lot of our colleagues and our peers from that program. So good for you, students. I want to commend everybody again. Let's give them a round of applause for the students.
Yeah, I'm hoping someday one of them will teach the course when I retire. Any questions? We're good?
Hi, my name's Debbie Blondell-Pitt. I'm with Indigenous Services Canada. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed your presentation and that I've learned so much, and I'd love to have a copy of your report.